Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
How goes it this week?
Fantastic.
Yeah,
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I saw a little tweety poo from Raphael Levy, the man who, if you had to pick somebody on the Pro Tour to, go back to back with and, fighting against the zombie apocalypse, you'd pick Raph, right?
Yeah, he definitely is on my short list at the very least, and particularly if swords or no weapons at all, and we're just fisticuffs.
I mean, it's just fisticuffs. Raph is like he's like two standard deviations above the mean, right? Like he's
a little bit more than that. I mean,
more than that.
He is a bad man.
So I saw a tweety poo from Raphael Levy talking about a little something for starting in Pro Tour Dublin, right?
Yes, team top level. Myself and Raph, Craig Wesco, Brian Bronduin, Mike Atron, and then Dan Levier all have gotten together to form a squad. The new Magic six-person team, six-person teams. Well, we are going to be representing in Dublin, and definitely looking forward to that. Awesome squad.
Yeah, that's not too bad. You got a two-time Worlds finalist, 3 Pro Tour champions, and current world champion, right?
Very, 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 very elite players. So it is an honor to be able to play with those gentlemen, and it's promising to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So go team top level. I know who I will be cheering for at Pro Tour Dublin. And I assume that all of our listeners will be cheering for team top level to the exclusion of other teams, other players. I mean, look, think about it like this. Really, the hero of Magic the Gathering, the person that you'd want to be rooting for, Luis Scott Vargas, is retired for the year. So there's no competition anyway.
So Aether Revolt is out. And there's so many cards that we got to break, man.
Really? We have to break so many? What about just breaking 1 or 2 of them really well? I would settle for that.
It's like a cascading series of breaks.
Like, you can only play like 15 different cards in your deck at the most, right?
But
like,
what I'm saying is,
break 20, that's 5 wasted.
But what I'm saying is, not necessarily tutors, but second, if we break the format, it may lead to another break. It might be broken by this week's standards or week 1 standards, but by having that knowledge ahead of time, we could get ahead. We could actually figure out how it'll be broken in a couple weeks.
Well, yeah, so where do you want to start? I think that because we spent most of last week's episode talking about the fair cards of Aether Revolt, I really think maybe we should get down and dirty to the Saheeli Rai.
Could not agree more.
Felidar Guardian combo. Because honestly...
But not even just that. Those, but also a couple other very important unfair combos.
All right.
Let's start with Saheeli Rai.
Let's start with Saheeli Rai. So the basic gist of it is you got this card Felidar Guardian. It's a 1/4 creature for 4 mana for white and 3. When it comes into play, it blinks something, right? So you have this card, Saheeli Rai, that has the ability to make a hasty token of something, let's say a creature. If you make a hasty token of Felidar Guardian, the token will come into play and blink something, maybe blink Saheeli Rai, so you have a fresh Planeswalker, and you can rinse and repeat this and make, 1,000 1/4 cat beasts, right? All can attack this turn. Here's the interesting thing about it. It's a 2-card combo in Standard that can do an infinite amount of damage. Or as much as you want, going wide. That's the starting point, right? But it's not the end point. There are many, many different ways to approach this problem, and I think that if you're going to be successful at Pro Tour Dublin, you're going to have a plan against this. It's going to be, in my well ahead of the Pro Tour estimation, this will be, if not the most popular macro strategy, it's going to be something you're going to have to know how to deal with for the Pro Tour at a minimum.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple macro strategies that seem to be kind of the pillars, but this has got to be one of them, and certainly the most talked about at the moment. And it looks promising. It looks very strong. So there's at least 2 basic ways to play it. But I actually think that really getting full value involves a little bit more exploration. Because I think a lot of people have been talking about the fact that you can just go turn 3, Saheeli Rai, ship the turn, untap, drop Felidar Guardian, and win. Or the other one is turn 6, you can drop Saheeli Rai and Felidar. You Felidar Guardian, untap one of your land, cast Saheeli Rai, make a copy of Felidar Guardian, and go off. So you actually, even though it's 3+4, you can use the Felidar Guardian to get a Lotus Petal discount.
Free mana. The other thing is that if you start with turn 3 into turn 4 Felidar Guardian, if somebody messes up your Saheeli Rai but doesn't kill it, that could be okay, right? Because the Felidar Guardian comes into play and can blink it to starting loyalty again, right? To start. Yep. So you actually have to kill the Saheeli Rai. You can't just get it to the point that its loyalty is too loaded to do the copying ability.
Right, and you could also actually you have to be prepared for the player who just puts Felidar Guardian down without having the Saheeli Rai, because if they play a Felidar Guardian on turn 4, on turn 5 they could just play Saheeli Rai and go off there, even with negate backup.
Yep.
So there's a lot of different ways to stack that, but there's two other big parts of the equation. Are you actually, I should say 3. There's 3 ways, kind of like shells, I guess people have talked about. You could put this combo in a control deck so that you just have a combo kill. You could put it in a ramp deck that tries to play both in the same turn ahead of schedule with something like Inspiring Statuary. Or you can play this as part of a blinking, almost like a momentary blink Revel Arc strategy with lots of triggers, so that when you're on the backup plan, you just make Felidar Guardian and Saheeli Rai into very good cards in their own right.
Yeah, there's just a 187 dudes plan, right?
Right, because if your deck is loaded up with things like Cloud Blazer or Torrential Gearhulk or Maverick Thopterist, I was
thinking the Emerge guy that taps down things.
Well, so the Emerge guy who taps down things can be great. It's really great for forcing through the combo. And it's really great that the Emerge guy, that Elder Deep Fiend, gets so much benefit out of Thopter Maverick, or Maverick Thopterist. Because, you don't have to actually pay for the 5 mana for the Thopterist in order to get the 5 mana discount on the Elder Deep Fiend. But the thing is that if you blink the Elder Deep Fiend, it doesn't re-trigger the ability. Whereas lots of other
because it's a cast
options.
Trigger, right?
Right. Whereas the Thopterist, the Cloud Blazer, the Torrential Gearhulk, all those things you can potentially abuse with cards like Eldrazi Displacer or Essence Flux. Or Felidar Guardian or Saheeli Rai, of course, right? The fact that you can put Felidar Guardian down and then blink your Thopterist just to advance the board, or blink your Cloud Blazer to draw cards and gain life. Or you can put Saheeli Rai down and make a copy of your Torrential Gearhulk that's been playing defense, and then use the Torrential Gearhulk to trigger, to cast something else like Glimmer of Genius or whatever. I mean, and I don't know that you want to play all these. That's kind of a lot. But,
so you talked about 3 different strategies for shells that you could play the Saheeli Rai Felidar Guardian combo in. I think that Torrential Gearhulk is awesome in shell number 1, and I think it's a little dubious in shell number 3. Not bad necessarily. Maybe it's okay. Maybe there's a build there, but I think it's awesome in shell number 1. I'm less excited in shell number 3. That's because I think the shell number 3 is going to be full of guys, and Torrential Gearhulk largely wants to be surrounded by spells. Instance in particular, right?
That's fair. I do think, though, that it's possible that shell number 3 ends up blurring with shell number 2, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think? Does you think shell number 2 is a green deck? So one of the things I've been thinking.
No, not necessarily. No, I said a ramp deck.
I know you said a ramp deck.
It could be it doesn't need to be green. It could be Inspiring Statuary. It could be Artifact Mana, Cultivator's Caravan.
I mean, making
Hedron
just allow
Archive.
one cheaper is pretty good.
Getting to play Metallic Rebuke is pretty good.
Yeah, sure.
The artifact build, though, if you just have some artifacts laying around, first of all, the fact that Inspiring Statuary can turn your key to the city into a Mind Stone that can also draw you cards when you want, that's already interesting, right? But, like, the ability to use those artifacts to power out a Maverick Thopterist and sacrifice the Maverick Thopterist to Elder Deep Fiend. When you have a Maverick Thopterist in play, your Elder Deep Fiend only costs 2 mana.
That's a lot of mana open for counterspells, etc.
Well, and you can actually play the Maverick for only 2 mana also if you just have 3 artifacts to tap.
Which you might easily have, say, if you had a previous Maverick Thopterist.
So you could actually just... I could imagine decks that consistently are able to play an Elder Deep Fiend on turn 4 or 5, tap all their opponent's land, sacrificing a Thopterist with a big board presence without taking much damage, and then combo off, without even having to expose either half of the Felidar Guardian Saheeli Rai combo. Right? Like the fact that you could, like, on turn 5, sack the Thopter. You could tap 2 artifacts and cast the Thopterist, and then on your opponent's turn, sack the Thopterist and Elder Deep Fiend, lock down all their mana, untap, and then drop Saheeli Rai and Felidar Guardian in the same turn.
Patrick, I hope this doesn't sound dumb, but I was just thinking about the shell that you're talking about right now that's got Maverick Thopterist, making all these 1/1s, got some good bodies out there. I almost feel like you could just Decimator of Provinces in this situation, right? And then kill them that way. Is that a simpler thing? Is that too crazy on the mana? Am I insane? Is this a horrible idea?
And you just want to sack, like, the Elder Deep Fiend?
Yeah, and then just 20 them. Like, yeah.
Well, that's a different deck. I mean, you could try to make that deck too if you wanted. I think that there's a lot of room for emerge strategies to re-emerge. I think that before, the combination of Smuggler's Copter, like, a Smuggler's Copter doesn't play nice with emerge. But the Smuggler's Copter, and then the fact that Emrakul just went over the top of some of the other stuff, there was less need. But now there's a real opportunity in the metagame for the emerge stuff to come back. What do you think about using Felidar Guardian and Saheeli Rai in a deck full of 1/8/7 triggers, though, like we were talking about? Like, how much do you actually have to even play combo-y versus just lots of value, lots of 2-for-1s?
Oh, I actually thought that would be one of the more interesting routes to go with those cards, from the perspective of cards that I'd like to play, right? So that's a spot where you could get, like, a Pilgrim's Eye, right? Like, this is a strategy that's got 3 colors. Pilgrim's Eye, if you can cast it, you can probably get all your colors online. Now, I was thinking, of playing Elder Deep Fiend, which I understand isn't a 1/87 trigger, so it doesn't have natural synergy with Saheeli Rai, but it fits thematically, in my opinion, of these cards that have a certain amount of cost, can therefore discount it, and kind of, when you say Revelark, really just thinking about cards that are giving you more mileage than what you're paying for in terms of they're Mull Drifters, right? You used to talk about a card being a Mull Drifter or a Baneslayer Angel. This is
right.
Kind of a philosophy where we're full of Mull Drifters, but you get enough Mull Drifters and you stack them together and you have a tremendous amount of value. I think that's one of the areas that I would definitely want to explore. And even earlier today, I was looking over Owen Turtenwald's list that he when he played T-Merge to second place in the Pro Tour two Pro Tours ago. I was just like, well, how many creatures do you actually have to have this kind of a shell? Like, can you play Wretched Griff? That was one of the cards that Owen played. And that, even part of my inspiration for asking about Decimator Provinces was, if you're going to come in at this angle, you're already 3 colors. Is it bad to be 4? I don't know. Because there's a lot of synergy that you can get, or early bodies are valuable. I think that one of the ways that you can potentially lose with this incredibly powerful combo is just you're taking all your time to set up the combo, and you can get run over by a vehicle stack in that time, right? So having early drops, including like 1-drop guys with Death Touch, great blockers for GN1 or something, those are the kind of things that can help buy you time to get to your Saheeli Rai and Felidar Guardian.
Yeah, but what I wonder is, where do you draw the line on Felidar Guardian, Saheeli Rai action versus like just putting some bodies down and decimating? Because like Decimator of Provinces is triple green.
Yeah, I mean it was just this is what I was thinking. Are you going to play like Panharmonicon in this deck?
I don't know, man. It depends. If you're playing the 187 stuff, you also have the option of stuff like Eldrazi Displacer and Essence Flux that are so much better cards on their own. I think if you're going to Panharmonicon, it's got to be because you've got some other combo that you're valuing, like maybe like a Whirler Rogue energy loop thing. Like if you have Decoction.
Whirler Virtuoso, you mean, right?
Yeah, Whirler Virtuoso, right.
Well, I was thinking, when you're invoking the name of the Cloud Blazer, my mind goes to Panharmonicon. Because, Cloud Blazer's this guy, he's just hasn't really had a huge amount of impact. The only deck, and maybe that's because Smuggler's Copter and Emrakul were around before, but really the only deck that he's had any real impact is Panharmonicon strategy. For all the value that he generates, which is, it's true, he's generating a ton of value for what you're actually investing in mana. He's not a lot of impact on the board, and there's that tension. You're going to spend 5 or so, get a 2/2. You might get run over, even if you're up for the equivalent of 3 or 4 cards in value.
If you're interested in Decimator of Provincing, have you considered Enraged Giant or Free Jam Regent?
I have not considered either of those cards.
So Enraged Giant is 5 in a red for a 4/4 trample, haste, improvise. And then Free Jam Regent is 4 red for a 4/4 flying improvise with 1 in a red fire breathing. 1 in a red +2/+0 into 1 a turn.
He's like the kind of like the big dragon guy, right?
Right. So Free Jam Regent and Enraged Giant both are 6-drop improvise cards, and they could be, they're pretty solid threats in their own right. Like if you can consistently play Enraged Giant or Free Jam Regent on turn 3, you're at least doing something, right? Like if you're consistently playing Enraged Giant on turn 3 without too much opportunity cost, it's okay. It's kind of appealing. But where things get awesome is when you combine Enraged Giant and Free Jam Regent's primary enablers, which are Servos tokens, with Decimator of Province requiring, like, if you want to get full value from your Decimator, you can sacrifice up to a 6 cost. So you can actually sacrifice, you can sacrifice anything you want, but you're wasting the extra mana.
Yep.
If you play, say on turn, if you play on turn 1, whatever artifact you want, and on turn 2 you play a Servos Exhibition. On turn 3 you can play Enraged Giant, and on turn 4 you can Decimator of Provinces. Like, you're already hitting for a bunch. If that first artifact was like an artifact creature, like a Beaumont Courier or something, or heaven forbid you have stuff like Ornithopter, you could actually just be, that's 19 extra damage right there, right? So I don't know. I just think that it's interesting seeing, like, if you're going to Decimator of Provinces, maybe you can really take advantage of some of these improvised cards that are kind of fake in terms of how much they cost, right? Like that are doing kind of the Greater Gargadon thing.
Yeah, Beaumont Courier sounds like an awesome enabler.
I do think though that in terms of the actual Felidar Guardian Saheeli Rai combo, you got to be ready for how fast and aggressive people are going to be coming out in this format. And you also have to be prepared for how effective shock is against your combo. For just 1 mana, they can kill Saheeli Rai. Even if you had ticked up Saheeli Rai early on, there is a vulnerable shields down spot when the Felidar Guardian is targeting the Saheeli Rai after has already blinked back once.
Yeah, you can actually respond to either effect, right? Either one is open game, right? So the first time when you remove the loyalty to blink, that hasn't resolved yet, and Saheeli Rai shields down, or when the cat beast appears and then targets Saheeli Rai, you can respond in either time, right?
Yes, but I'm talking about if the loyalty had been ticked up earlier.
Oh yeah, I know.
There's a lot of shields down moments. There's a lot of shields down moments. So you got to be prepared for that, because it's so easy for take for instance some kind of Boros Vehicles deck or a Dwarf deck or something, right? The Boros deck could very quickly come out and put you on a very fast clock. We're talking about a deck that has access to things like a 3/2 first striker for 1. This is a deck that comes out guns blazing, puts you on a short clock, and then has access to ways to disrupt your combo for 1 mana.
I forgot about that guy. The dwarf, yeah, because he wasn't getting played in blue-white very much. But there's great demand for him, huh?
Oh, yeah. Toolcraft Exemplar stock has never been higher. And there's a lot of new
funny
dwarves.
that they banned the best artifact, and a guy who's dependent on artifacts gets so good.
Well, you got to remember, Thraben Inspector is one of the best cards in the format.
Absolutely.
Toolcraft Exemplar works great with it. I also think Thraben Inspector is just an amazing card for Improvise decks. The fact that you can play a Thraben Inspector in turn 1 with playing such a high quality card and committing such a great, that's just so good of material to be putting down, while at the same time supporting your Improvise strategy.
Thraben Inspector is really an overpowered card for what he costs. His body is better than what the expectation should be for the man. Even when you play against him with 1/1 tokens, whatever kind of 1/1 tokens you have, clerics or servos or whatever, he's annoying to play against. He's super annoying to play against if he ever gets a buff from Gideon or
always watching.
Yeah, it's anything. He's just a little too big for.
Well, there's also lots of great new synergies. The fact that you can sacrifice the clue in order to trigger Revolt, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and
that's a big deal.
You never want to use a real card on him once he's already in play. Sometimes you have to, but yeah, that guy is. Do you think he's going to be in the? He's almost certain to be in the 187s version of the Saheeli Rai.
Definitely.
But probably not in the other 2 versions, in my mind.
No, I disagree.
Yeah?
I think Thraben Inspector is where it's at. I think you can play Thraben Inspector even in the control deck. I think you can play Thraben Inspector in a lot of these decks. I think that having some early defense, a speed bump, while at the same time having the possibility of things like being able to use his clue to help power for instance, a Maverick Thopterist sooner. All that stuff matters. Even if he dies in combat,
blinking him isn't that bad, right? Blinking him is de facto drawing a card and setting up Revolt.
Oh yeah. No, I think Thraben Inspector is the real. That's the real deal. To be sure.
So let's talk about the control version for a second.
Sure.
I was thinking kind of a shell similar to the blue-red energy deck that made top 8 of the last Pro Tour, the one that Shadow won. But instead of Dynavolt Towers, playing the combo. So I guess it's similar to the deck you played at Grand Prix Denver, which had 3 or 4 Torrential Gear Hulks, right? I'm thinking 3 or 4 Torrential Gear Hulks at the top, 4 Felidar Guardians, Saheeli Rai, and then the rest of it's just support type cards that are either counter spells, removal, Fumigates, Radiant Flames type stuff, 26-ish lands, Anticipate and Glimmer of Genius. That's kind of basically where I was thinking to start there.
So I think that's actually like so obvious. Like that's such a like
it's too obvious.
It's clear that is a good starting point without actually playing some games yet. Like it's such a your mind goes to that spot first. But I actually think that's the perfect example of the flaw in the way most of the people are talking about the Saheeli Rai Felidar Guardian stuff. The format is going to be heavily prepared for the existence of that combo. And Felidar Guardian and Saheeli Rai are terrible cards in that deck.
See,
they're not good in the deck. It's just they're good as a combo. What I'm saying is if you only have one, it's not going to help you very much.
Yeah, so you're just basically relying on the super strength of the combo there. Like my mind went there specifically because, you know, it's very similar to how I approach Twin in Standard, right? So prior to that, people were playing more discard spells, 3-color Twin decks, you know, tighter mana bases, versus just like, and the reason I like, at least as a starting point, this is where I want to start, is if you have a whole bunch of lands and Anticipates and Glimmers, and you think that other people are going to be playing these kinds of decks, there's a lot to be said for just optimizing making your land drops. That's kind of where I disagree
with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying that you got to remember how different it is that you can't go end step Saheeli Rai untap Felidar Guardian.
Yep, that's true.
That is night and day, because the Twin deck you benefited largely from the fact that all sites weren't on the Twin deck the same way. You made it work when people didn't realize how good it could be. But you also benefited from the fact that the Twin combo could kill somebody with... You could go from no board to win the game starting any time turn 3 and after, where if your opponent just taps out on the third turn...
Oh, yeah, they play a Jace Bellerin and you kill them.
Right. That's not the case with this. Right? This, it takes 6 mana to be out of nowhere. I think that it's still a fantastic combo. I just think that you have to approach things a little differently.
I think you make a great point, though. Like that in the control shell, neither Saheeli Rai nor Felidar Guardian is actually synergistic with your plan, right? It's the opposite of Dynavolt Tower. It's the opposite of Thing in the Ice, right? Those are cards that are just awesome with the rest of your deck. It just so happens that together those cards win the game.
By the way, I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking about the Regent and the haste trampler.
Yep.
If you don't mind about the costs, or if you don't need that many, you know, like Red has the advantage of having 2 different 6-drop Improvise guys. There's arguably an even better one in blue, which is Bastion Inventor, 5 in a blue for a 4/4 Improvise hexproof. Wow, what a common. So Bastion Inventor, the nice thing about him is how you can put it down. Your investment isn't vulnerable to removal, right? Like you can just tap all your servos and your random cantrip artifacts, whatever it is, and cast Bastion Inventor, and then you have a 4/4 hexproof Improvise. And hexproof works particularly well with all these tokens to help protect you from things like Oath of Liliana, for instance, or To the Slaughter. But then you have a 4/4 hexproof that you could sack to your Decimator Provinces to go for a big kill. So, anyway, I just thought that one was interesting.
There's a lot of interesting stuff, like, I don't know, we're jumping around a little bit, but like, Trophy Mage, for example, is he somebody who you could play in the 187 version of the Felidar Guardian deck? Like, he's a 187. He could get you something that you might want. Like, even if you only played 1 statuary, right? I don't probably play 2 if you're going to play Trophy Mages. Like, doesn't that help you a lot to have that in your deck?
Yeah. I mean, but the fact that you can go get Pilgrim's Eye is kind of interesting. The fact that you can go get Scrap Trawler. Scrap Trawler's cool with the merge anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of potentially interesting applications of Trophy Mage. The biggest problem with Trophy Mage is that a 2/2 body is like a 2/2 for 3 is a uniquely bad time for a 2/2 for 3. Like there's going to be shocks all over the place. A 2/2 is going to get outclassed. Like when your opponent has a 1-mana 3/2 first strike, a 2/2 doesn't have the same value that it normally would.
Nope.
So yeah, I think that there's a variety of potential targets to consider, but getting back to your Saheeli Rai Felidar Guardian business, what do you think about the use of stuff like Vessel of Nascency in order to try to set up the combo, or Oath of Nissa, for instance?
Wow, so Oath of Nissa sounds great to me, right? It could potentially hit either half of the combo.
Right, Vessel of Nascency just has the advantage of you might be stacking both, and you might be stacking like both Oath of Nissa and Vessel of Nascency, and you might have graveyard interactions. Because if you have ways to get the combo back, it might be that you just want to self-mill yourself a lot.
I'm just wondering, like, am I going to have time? Like, I feel like if I'm playing cards like Vessel of Nascency, then I might have really good reason to do that if I have like a Delirium sub-theme or a Delirium primary theme.
Sub-theme? I'm talking about 4 Ishkana Graph Widows.
Yeah, so a Delirium primary theme then.
If you Felidar Guardian your Ishkana, or if you Saheeli Rai your Ishkana...
Sold. I think
that's a lot.
I think this is a great shell for Decimator of Provinces now. Ishkana? Are you kidding me?
Oh my god, Ishkana is like the best. That's the best all time. Like, to sack your Decimator of Provinces.
I'm in love with this already. That seems fantastic.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, my Oaths can get an infinite combo too. Like my deck on Plan B might be better than a fair number of decks. That sounds great, Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it now. Vessel of Nascency. Let's grapple. I don't know. Let's descend upon the sinful out of the sideboard.
Okay, so here's a couple.
I had a different one before we go to other archetypes. Do you think it's possible that you could go Felidar Guardian Saheeli Rai combo in Marvel? So you've got Marvel, and you've got like the whole Marvel thing, right? Like whether you're flipping over 5 Casting Spider Makers or you're flipping over one of the remaining Eldrazi Titans, whatever that is. Or even, flipping over Descent Upon the Sinful as a hit, which we've seen players do. You have that whole jazz going, but then you also have this other combo, right? There's some precedent in Magic to play multiple big end combos in the same deck.
Yeah, and there's a few interesting 187s that kind of bridge the gap between Copycat and Aetherworks. Maverick Thopterist. Maverick Thopterist is an interesting card with when you're blending these strategies, because obviously if you just Felidar Guardian or Saheeli Rai your Thopterist, you could potentially get lots and lots of tokens and play some kind of a token game, right? And your Thopterist is very effective at protecting Saheeli Rai from getting attacked. And then the Thopterist actually benefits from... You might actually just tap, the random Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot or whatever you have laying around. Aetherworks Marvel can be built with a variety of random artifacts that just can end up giving you some big tempo plays with Maverick Thopterist. But then what's more, I like Maverick Thopterist in a Marvel deck that uses Inspiring Statuary. Because if you have some Inspiring Statuary, whether it's with Trophy Mage like you were discussing, or just more of it, just a bunch of Inspiring Statuaries, possibly Key to the City. If you have Inspiring Statuary with Thopterist, you can tap your Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, your 2 Thopters, maybe your 4 Thopters if you blinked it at some point, and then just cast Ulamog.
That's a big game. I was actually just thinking, if you were going to, you're playing the Maverick, Whirler Virtuoso is a card that people have played in Marvel decks previously, right? So he's potentially a source of energy, and he's potentially a source of artifacts for Improvise.
Oh yeah,
He's either goes either way, and he's great to be blinked.
And you can sink your extra energy into the Virtuoso, get lots of artifacts, and then Inspiring Statuary and go nuts.
Yeah, I think these guys are all great together. I think that'll be like potentially a really interesting deck because it's also hard to defend against, right? So if you're like, all right, my strategy is going to be to defend against go wide, right? And I'm going to do that by potentially shocking Saheeli Rai. Or I'm going to play a card like Heretic Cathar to make all the copycats come into play tapped. So it doesn't matter how many triggers they get, they can't kill me. But if the same deck has the ability to cast like a turn 3 or turn 4 Ulamog, then, all bets are off. Your entire strategy you had to counter what you were perceiving as their A game is just out the window. It's the same as when people were playing Thepts in Extended, right? Where you're like, I'm just going to concentrate all of my cards. Like I'm going to, not Boom Bust, what's the other one that has the red unsummon? I got to play the red unsummon. Yeah, like
Dead Gone. Yeah,
Dead Gone. It's a fight against the 2020 token, right? Like that's going to be my strategy. Or I'm going to play, cards. They're going to get the 2020 token. I'm going to figure out a way to stop the 2020 token. You end up losing to an infinite number of Thopters, or you end up losing to Jace if your entire plan is around that.
Yeah. The fact that you can't just rely on having like holding up shock to protect your little beatdown you got going if you can't also beat like a turn 5 Ulamog. If they just use Inspiring Statuary to cast Ulamog on turn 5, that's going to obliterate a lot of people.
Yeah, Inspiring Statuary is bonkers card. The fact that at worst case it's just like a clue stone or whatever. What are those things? A key rune. That's its bad. It's bad mode is key rune.
Rogue Refiner is another interesting card that might be used in some kind of an energy deck that's like really committed to having a legit backup plan. Like if you're using Rogue Refiner, which is the 1 green-blue for a 3/2 that when it enters the battlefield, draw a card and get energy. I mean, that's not an embarrassing set of stuff right up front. But the fact that you can use Rogue Refiner with all your blinking stuff to like get just tons of cards, it's kind of interesting.
I mean, that card's super strong. Like,
Rogue Refiner to me Rogue Refiner to me looks like a much more appealing Cloud Blazer.
I like this card much more than Cloud Blazer.
Same.
I mean, like, the output is... I mean, first of all, the body isn't worse, but the output is maybe worse. It depends how you value energy, right, versus life. But it's way less mana. Like, it's kind of a big deal.
So, something that I haven't really seen a lot of people talking about is the fact that you can use Felidar Guardian to blink oaths. So, if you have Oath of Ajani in play, you can blink it with Felidar Guardian and then put an extra +1/+1 counter on all these Thopters you've been making.
Wow.
It's kind of interesting.
Played Oath of Nissa, Oath of Ajani, and Oath of Gideon, the Saheeli Rai combo as an afterthought, which you're getting with Oath of Nissa, but then just play these other like token producers and oath value as a primary, and then just play Decimator Provinces.
It's kind of awesome, the thought of ripping an Oath of Nissa later in the game when you have nothing.
Yeah.
Casting Oath of Nissa, finding Felidar Guardian, casting Felidar Guardian, blinking your Oath of Nissa, finding Saheeli Rai, and dropping it.
And killing them all in one turn. Like that's like you need 8 mana.
That's not even that much.
No.
Like, and you have nothing. To go from 0 to 60, that's, I don't know. That to me is, that kind of stuff is more attractive, more appealing than the fact that you can just kill on turn 4 sometimes. I mean, yeah, that's true, you can, but like people are going to be fighting back against that. The fact that you can get these free wins if you just play like a real game, and then just out of nowhere you just get, I guess I just go infinite.
Well, the turn 4 free wins are a big part of it too, right? Because like,
I don't know. I don't think they're going to be free. Yeah,
but like, people are mana screwed, or they're just stuck. Like you look at somebody across the table, and they're like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to have to discard. I'm just going to cast this stupid guy on this turn and hope you don't kill me. I was
Yeah, but it's not Flash. It doesn't have Flash. It's not the same as Twin.
I know it's not the same as Twin. I'm just saying, like, I mean, I've just watched people playtest a little bit so far, and you literally see one of the players being like, he's way ahead, and the other guy hasn't done anything. He's just like, well, I hope you don't have the combo in your hand, and then he just taps.
Yeah, but that's not turn 4. That's turn 6.
Yeah, that is turn 6. Fair enough.
All right, hey, so let's hit some of these other combos, because there's some other important ones that everybody might have all their sights set on Saheeli Rai, Felidar Guardian copycat nonsense, and be sleeping on some of the other combos that Eighth Revolt has made possible.
So hit me. What do you got?
Let's start with Indomitable Creativity. That's the X red 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 sorcery. Destroy X target artifacts and or creatures. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller reveals cards from the top of his or her library until an artifact or creature card is revealed and exiles that card. Those players put the exiled cards onto the battlefield, then shuffle their libraries. So if you have Indomitable Creativity, one possible use that on the surface it looks like is kind of what's going on is that it could be a warp world that re-triggers all your enters the battlefield triggers, and that's fine. But much more abusive is the possibility of playing with no artifacts or creatures in your deck except for a choice few that will allow you to devastate people.
Like, you've got Ulamog, right? You don't get the cast trigger, but you got this huge threat that if he attacks you a couple of times, you always lose.
Right, but you can actually go even further, because unlike the old polymorph decks that would just get like a single giant threat, you can Indomitable Creativity all your tokens and all your clues into threats. So you can just go like if you just played a Servos exhibition on turn 2, you could on turn 5, you could just get both Ulamog and Kozilek. Or going even further, imagine if let's say you just are playing some kind of a token deck. You've got Gideon, you've got Servos Exhibition, you have SRAM's Expertise, you've got stuff like that, right? Then you just go Indomitable Creativity for 3 on turn 6, and you just get Ulamog, Kozilek, and Chasm Guide, which is the ally that whenever an ally enters the battlefield, all your creatures get haste this turn. So you just kill it.
Play this in a strategy that was like Naya Walkers or something, right? Where you have Nissa, Gideon, Nahiri. I mean, and then Nahiri is actually also synergistic with just having a small number of awesome guys in your deck anyway, right?
Yep.
And it's not like you're hurting for awesome permanents to play. You're just not playing the kind that Indomitable Creativity gets, right? And you're just, making tokens however you're making tokens. You could be making tokens with Oath of Gideon. And
you can be making tokens with Verdant Haven. 2 and a green, enchant land. It taps for an additional, and now the land has tap for 2 mana of any color.
Yep.
So it fixes all your problems, including this triple red Indomitable Creativity, but it also gives you a clue. Indomitable Creativity needs artifacts or creatures. You can use clues to fuel it. So if you go, if you just play Verdant, plus it's acceleration, but if you play Verdant Haven on turn 3, you can Indomitable Creativity off the clue alone, or if you have some of those Servos in play, you can just Creativity for multiples on turn 4. There's a couple other kills you could explore too. Like if you stack up the allies, it's kind of interesting the amount that you can hit at once, right? Like if you have a glacial, or if you have a Chasm Guide, and then like a bunch of Tajuru Warcallers, I mean, you're gonna hit for just like oodles. every time.
Do you want to have like exactly a certain configuration but it also has like some cheapies like this? Like I feel like I could give up the insta kill in return for just having a higher talent quotient in my deck. You know, like what if I only have enough mana to get for one, and then I don't ever want to be hitting the ally? You know what I mean? Like I need to have the higher impact guys coming if I have a small number on my X.
So it's a little weird, but imagine a build that the only hits are 4 Decimator of Provinces. Now, Decimator of Province won't give you the trigger, but it just so happens to be a 7/7 haste. If you flip over 3 of them, because you might draw one, right?
Yeah.
But if you flip over 3 of them, that's just 21 right there. And your token deck might benefit from a Decimator of Provinces anyway. I don't know. That's probably bad, but it's weird to be able to set up.
Think about.
It's like Tooth and Nail, where I think the packages you're going to set up are going to involve some real weirdos that you would normally never be in the market for, except you know that you get to put when you tinker multiple times at the same time, weird things start happening. Like this, remember, this can also just hit artifacts. So, like, you could potentially imagine that what you want to go get is, like, Gonti's Aetherheart and then a bunch of Aetherwind Baskers. Like, what if your deck has 4 Aetherwind Baskers and a Gonti's Aetherheart? So that, like, if you just flip over, in general, you can count on knowing that they're mostly just Aetherwind Baskers, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you even have an Ulamog in there. I don't know. But as long as you flip over, if you flip over 3 cards and you get 2 Aetherwind Baskers and a Gonti's Aetherheart, I guess you probably actually need one other thing. So you maybe that's not even the exact right mix. But it's kind of interesting being able to flip over a Time Walk deterministically, right? And then be left with giant fatties that have trample and the ability to pump themselves. I mean, in fact, if you get Aetherwind Basker, Gonti's Aetherheart, and a Lightning Runner, you could, like, just go infinite. I mean, who knows? You might not even need the Gonti's Aetherheart. Well, if you just have, like, Lightning Runners and Aetherwind Baskers, you win.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, if you just have 2 Baskers and Gonti's Aetherheart, you'll make 4, right?
6. Gonti's Aetherheart gives you 2.
Okay. So how much does it cost? It costs 6 to use, right? Oh, no, it costs 8. 8 to use. So you need a well, maybe you had some hubs or something, right? Because that actually seems like you'd get most of the way there with just 2 Baskers. I mean, it depends how much defense they have, I guess, at that point.
But there's all sorts of weird things you might do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you're going to play a Gonti's deck, probably have some assumption of how much energy you're going to have to start, right? Like, there are a bunch of ways to get energy so that you'll have energy set up for when you cast your creativity. Like, you just play with energy generating things, like Aether Hubs or Glimmers or Harness Lightnings. Like that's the rest of your deck. I mean, you obviously have to be careful, right? You can't play Whirler Virtuoso because you might turn it over.
Well, so a lot of these things, they're all vulnerable to removal. And this is a format where people are going to be preparing for Saheeli Rai, Felidar Guardian, Copycat shenanigans anyway. Another possible, I guess, package. Who's the guy who has all the keywords of all your other guys? Like 3 and white, Odric?
I don't know.
Is that his name? Yeah, he's never really had a day in the sun. But Odric... But
he's coming. He's coming for Dublin.
So Odric is 3 and a white for a 3/3 that when Odric Lunarch Marshal... It's just not even... He doesn't even have to attack. It's just at the beginning of each combat... Creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn if a creature you control has first strike. The same is true for Flying, Death Touch, Double Strike, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Skulk, Trample, and Vigilance. So if you have Odric, Lunarch, Marshal, and then you get a creature that has Hexproof, I guess Hexproof isn't going to matter that much, but if you just have a creature that has Haste, all your creatures have Haste. So, like, Odric, Lunarch, Marshal all just needs a creature that has Haste that's not going to die. I guess Odric could die. I don't know. It's another Haste. It's another Haste enabler.
You know what card I think has gone massively up in value? It was already a good card. Won the last Pro Tour, but has super gone up in value. Unlicensed Disintegration.
Oh, yeah.
It can answer almost any of these cards, right? It can answer...
Also just a great card.
Well, yeah, it started off as a very good card, right? But it can answer... if there's artifact-based combos, it can preempt them. If it can answer the 1/4 cat by itself. Potentially do some damage in the spot you need it to against, a planeswalker that might be of too low of loyalty. It can do it all.
Another combo for you. Secret Salvage. 3 black, sorcery. Exile target non-land card from your graveyard. Search your library for any number of cards with the same name as that card. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your library.
So what are you getting, Patrick?
So you got a few options. The first option is your Hedron alignment. All you have to do, if you can find one Hedron alignment in your graveyard, right? Like, if you just are self-milling, if you can flip over one Hedron alignment, you can Secret Salvage to exile that Hedron alignment, draw your other 3, then all you have to do is get one into your graveyard and one into play, because you'll already have one in your hand, and you'll have the Hedron aligned.
I'm thinking, can you put this in a sideboard?
Yes.
Right, because this isn't. I don't think this is a great main deck combo, but there are certainly people who could not stop you from winning this way.
Right. If your sideboard games turn into locked up grind fests, right, or drug out, like Hedron alignment sitting in play, giving you selection, could actually be really good in those kind of sideboard games. And this is slow, but it is inevitable in a way that goes way over the top of people. Way over the top.
Yeah, they have no way to interact with it, possibly.
Right, and Emrakul no longer being in the format completely changes the rules of engagement regarding what it means to go over the top of somebody. So that's one option with Secret Salvage. Another possibility for Secret Salvage is in some kind of a... the 3/3 Eternal Scourge? So if you just get Eternal Scourge...
That's the guy who won the Grand Prix with Skredred, right?
Well, Eternal Scourge is the 3 colorless. Yep, 3/3. You may cast Eternal Scourge from exile. When Eternal Scourge becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, exile Eternal Scourge. So when you have Eternal Scourge... normally the drawback with Eternal Scourge is that if it dies, it literally goes to your graveyard.
It's just regular.
Right. It's just regular. It's just Trained Armadon. Gnarled Mass. If that happens, and your opponent is encouraged to try to arrange that, but if that happens, or you expedite it by emerging your Eternal Scourge, because you might play Eternal Scourge on 3, and then play Distended Mindbender on 4, and then on turn 5, if you Secret Salvage, not only do you get your Eternal Scourge exiled, where you could replay it, but you get all of your other Eternal Scourges. Now, you might get choked on mana, but that's a lot of extra... now you just have this army of 3/3s. The final one, and this is kicking it up to Modern, but if you use Secret Salvage with Relentless Rats or Shadow Mage Apostle, you can actually, if your Shadow Mage Apostle gets into the graveyard or your Relentless Rat gets into the graveyard, whatever, you can draw as many as you want. So if you're playing Shadow Mage Apostle, you could just draw, a handful, so many so that for sure you can just trigger your Shadow Mage Apostle. Or if you have a way to convert your cards into a useful resource, you might just be able to win on the spot. Because you could just use it as a draw 20, right?
Because is there a reason you wouldn't use Secret Salvage just like, I'm thinking like much more mundane ways, like Matter Reshaper? Like, isn't that just like there'd be, like, your opponent can't be playing copycat strategy, right? But if he's playing like regular vehicles aggro or something, isn't that pretty tough to beat? Just like a bunch of free 2-for-1s?
Well, they're not free. They're in your hand.
3 mana at a time, right? But
it's still, you're still
trade,
just
right? Like,
yeah, but you're still just working hard to make this a 5 mana draw 3.
All right.
I think you have to be abusing Secret Salvage to really get your money's worth.
I think the Hedron alignment is a pretty good idea.
That's an abusive case.
I think it can't be beaten by certain opponents, right? Like,
yeah,
the Hedron alignment itself is designed to be resilient.
Yep. All right, here's another one for you. So, SRAM Senior Edificer, 1 and a white, 2/2. Whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, draw a card. So, SRAM Senior Edificer, in a deck with 4 Cathar Shield and 4 Bonesaw, and then also Paradoxal Outcome, and then Improvise cards, using all those zeros to power Improvise, whether it's Inspiring Statuary or perhaps your Whir of Invention or Reverse Engineer, any of that stuff, right? Like, that's already... Go ahead.
What about the one that you, like, pay 50 gain...
Yes. The Aetherflux Reservoir.
Yeah, Aetherflux Reservoir.
Yep.
It seems like he would get along real well with SRAM and all these do-nothing zeros.
Yes. Another possible combo. Green Belt Rampager, Paradox Engine, and Servant of the Conduit. If you have Servant of the Conduit in play, you can tap the Servant of the Conduit, use your energy to cast Green Belt Rampager. You don't have any other energy, so you're going to get an energy and it'll go back to your hand, and then you can just replay it every turn, or you can not every turn, over and over and over again, because Paradox Engine keeps untapping your Servant. Those 3 cards are a perpetual loop. If you have anything else that does anything at any point of that process, like a card that taps for mana, now you have infinite mana.
Or like a game life trigger or something like that.
Yes, if you have Pious Evangel, you have infinite life. If you have infinite leaves the battlefield triggers, infinite enters the battlefield triggers. Infinite gains energy triggers, infinite cast triggers. If you have Life Caller's Bestiary, you can draw your whole deck if you have infinite mana. And the thing I think is interesting about this combo is that Green Belt Rampager and Servant of the Conduit are both amazing cards on their own. And together. So Paradox Engine might be an incidental way for an energy aggro or a green, like elf almost, strategy to go infinite. And there's a couple ways you can kind of backup plan it. Because, like, if you have Cryptolith rights, then you don't even need the Servant of the Conduit anymore. If you have...
Probably good to have anyway.
If you have... I'm saying, but you could draw the Cryptolith rights even if the Servant is dying. And if you have Rishkar, Pima Renegade, then you can go infinite as long as you have a way to spend your energy. Like, for instance, Long Tusk Cub, which even incidentally gives you a way to leverage it for a win. So there's a lot of little loops that way that you might use with Greenbelt Rampager. Here's another one for you. This isn't an infinite loop. but it's a pretty good. Scrap Trawler with Walking Ballista. You've got to be into that, right?
I think Walking Ballista is a really interesting card that we didn't talk about last week in the fair episode. It seems like one of the just it by itself, Scrap Trawler or not, right? This does seem like it's a really good nuts and bolts card. It's like the inheritor to I've already forgotten its name.
Hangerback Walker?
Yeah, it's in every deck. Yeah, Hangerback Walker.
Yeah, I mean, Walking, like they even put the name in the title, Walking, right? Walking Ballista is even if you just play for 2, you've already got a Mog Fanatic, right?
Yeah, so this card is...
For any color, including blue or green, where Mog Fanatic is at an enormous premium.
It's XX for a 0/0, but it's like Hangerback Walker. It comes with a +1/+1 counter on it for each X you put in, right? So for 2 total mana, it's 1 and 1. You get 1 +1/+1 counter, same at 4, etc., just like Hangerback Walker. But as this additional ability, 4 put a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista. But then where it gets interesting, like you said, for 2 you get a Mog Fanatic. If you remove a +1/+1 counter from it, it can ping a creature or player. So
right, you don't even have to sack it. You can literally just start shooting things.
Yeah, so one interpretation is that you can get a damage for every 4, right?
Yep.
It probably
gives you something to do with infinite mana, incidentally.
Oh, that's true.
So Walking Ballista is also synergistic with tons of things. If you have your Winding Constrictor, then you just get an extra counter every time. If you've got Revolt, you can sack Walking Ballista to make sure that you trigger Revolt.
And then put your Scrap Trawler to get it back.
And Scrap Trawler gets extra mileage out of Walking Ballista because normally there are no high... Walking Ballista is just by far the highest impact 0. Right? Like getting back an Ornithopter, it's like, okay, how much are you even doing, right? But if you get back Walking Ballista, which counts as a 0 in your graveyard, you're probably going to have an even higher impact Walking Ballista than it has ever been previously in the game. And you can go down the chain, right? Like, Scrap Trawler can cause your Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot to get back like a Terrion or an implement of the red one, or the white one, I guess.
Is there a Seasons Past application here?
Could be.
Is that too much of a stretch?
No. I think the Seasons Past could use a 0.
I mean, this is a heck of a 0, right? Like the old option was just to get a land, typically.
Yeah, I mean, this is a high impact 0 as far as zeros go, right? Like
very high impact 0.
So another, I guess, combo to consider. I don't know if you consider this unfair though. How do you feel about Monstrous Onslaught with Rishgar's Expertise?
So, which one is Monstrous Onslaught?
3 green sorcery. Monstrous Onslaught deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control as you cast Monstrous Onslaught. So when you cast Rishgar's Expertise, ostensibly you have a high-power creature, right? Like your Gideon is active or something.
Well, or you have a why you would cast that card, right?
But when you draw off Rishgar's Expertise, like, you know how before we were talking about having some kind of a sweeper, right? The best sweeper for Rishgar's Expertise is in green. If you just Monstrous Onslaught, you can Rishgar's Expertise into Monstrous Onslaught and then play it for free. And the fact that Rishgar's Expertise worked lets you know that Monstrous Onslaught is going to work. And they can't even respond to Monstrous Onslaught by killing the creature.
Because it's as you cast.
Exactly. And then you just sweep the board in a way that green never is able to, normally. That's weird, right? Like, that's a very different green strategy or combo than we normally see.
You know how you
that's like when you tooth a nail in your mono green deck and go get Triskelion and Mephedros Vampire it's like, look, you're not really being a green deck right now. Come on.
Well, I'm just saying, you know how you talk about sweet versus good?
Yeah.
That looks pretty sweet to me. That's my reading of that combo.
Okay, fair enough. How about instead the Aether Tide Whale? That's 4 blue for a 6/4 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you get 6 energy, and you can pay 4 energy to blink it to owner's hand. So ostensibly, this is a control card of sorts, like for a way to leverage all your extra Glimmer of Genius, Harness Lightning.
Yeah, it's like a Pearl Lake Ancient, right? Like that's
right. It's a Pearl Lake Ancient of sorts where you can turn all your extra energy into get out of jail free cards, because like if you the whale, when it enters the battlefield, gives you 6, but your opponent can respond by killing it. However, if you have at least 4 energy already stockpiled, now you can blink it for 0 mana. However, you also have the option to Aether Tide Whale with, if you have a Paradox Engine, an Aether Tide Whale, and then, I don't know, a card that taps for 7.
Well, I was just thinking you could Creativity for 2 into Gontes and Aether Tide Whale. That's fuel, right?
Yep.
That's enough.
Then you get an extra turn and have an Aether Tide Whale.
Yeah, I feel like I could win from there.
Yeah, Aether Tide Whale is a for sure way to trigger Gonti, you know?
Like, I think that's...
But it's not the only one. You know, I mean, Gonti's triggers off of any artifact. So if you just have any artifact... Like, if you just get, like, for instance, if you have Gonti's Aether Heart and 3 Metalwork Colossus, you get an extra turn and then also just have 3 Metalwork Colossus on the table.
Probably can win from there, just a guess.
Or alternatively, if you Gontes and make 3 Servos somehow, you know, or 3 Thopters, right? Like, all you have to do is have enough artifacts. I mean, I don't know. What if you went and got Whirler Virtuoso and Decoction Module, Panharmonicon, and Gontes? Is that enough? That's pretty close.
I'm probably winning a lot, right? Like, didn't I already have an infinite energy sort? If I have like the first 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So many ways to do that one. What do you think about the about using Planar Bridge as part of a... Is this just too expensive? Is this too over the top? This is the 6-cost legendary artifact. You can pay 8 and tap it to search your library for a permanent and put it onto the battlefield. Is this too much?
No, I think, like... I feel like as long as there's matchups that are conducive to you getting out an enormous inevitable threat that they can't deal with, then it's just going to win the game for you. And a lot of the time people are like, well, that would just never happen. That's not true. It happens all the time, right? Like, there are innumerable examples of decks that are slow that are successful at high-level tournaments, and sometimes you're successful in those tournaments by having specific strategies just against those opponents. Like, I have a bias where I tend to overload on specific types of removal, especially if it costs 2 mana in our instance. I tend to overload my sideboard slots against fast decks, even if it's fast combo or control decks, you know? Like, I want to have fast answers. But that sometimes you lose to something that costs 8, right? Like, have you ever been in rock-on-rock fights, right, where you're playing, let's say, I hate to say fast rock deck, right, but like maybe a more proactive rock deck, or, you know, a Jungish deck where you're trying to attack someone, and they just stabilize against you, and they've got Genesis, right? You always lose those games, right? That's essentially the same thing as what you just said. Like, they have a permanent source of card advantage that has some amount of selection built into it. Like, I remember...
People have used Emrakul, the original one, Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, as a way to go over the top and win a game for 15 mana, where in spots where counterspells weren't even necessarily what was going on, this only costs 14 to play in this and use in the same turn. And if you go get something maybe you go get a Gonti's Aetherheart, right, and use it, untap immediately, and just have this thing already in play now with much more mana, you might never have to give your opponent another turn anyway. It depends on what your deck is doing. But you also might not even be trying so hard. You might just have this as a way to have some inevitability in some kind of a delirium deck that knows that matchups get bogged down sometimes. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
if you have access to huge amounts of mana from Rishkar, Pima, Renegade interacting with Nissa, Voice of Zendikar.
Or it's just you have huge amounts of mana because there's so much time, right? Like, think about old extended matches where you have something like one player's playing Martyr or both players are playing Martyr, right? If both players are playing Martyr, if one of them has built a way to win into their Martyr deck, they're almost certain to be able to get there, right? Because the other guy's not going to kill them. So let's say you just have like Mistveil Plains. Like, that's your breaker, right? You're eventually going to deck them with Mistveil Plains. Or you have a real card. I remember there was I think like Rock versus Oath match, I want to say. I can't remember if it was Brian Kibler or Ben Rubin with they had this like big splashy deck, black-green Oath. And it was like the big deck of the tournament. And I want to say it was Ben Rubin playing the deck. I think probably both of them played it. That was their modus operandi in those days. But I think it was Ben Rubin in this match playing against John Becker. And John Becker's had so much time. And he was able to Vampiric Tutor for like Jolrael, Empress of Beasts, turn on all of Rubin's lands, right? And then Wrath, right? Like, which just seems ridiculous. That's an enormous number of cards. It's an enormous amount of card advantage investment. It's an enormous amount of mana required. It's like, I don't know, something like 14 mana over 2 turns or something. But there was enough time to do all that. Oh, I know, it was a Pernicious Deed, I think, actually. So maybe only 13 mana over 2 turns or something. But there are just matchups that if you've got these cards, you have access to them in a 75 set, not a 60 set, that, you know, the opponent is just optimized to stop a vehicles deck from running them over, right? Or responding to Copycat so that they don't die to that fast combo, or they have exactly shock against Saheeli Rai that's invested a little bit of loyalty. If you get them into this spot, they just don't have the cards to interact with you. So, yes, I actually think that card could easily be grinding for 14 mana or whatever and get you where you need to go.
Here's another infinite combo for you. Renegade Rallier with Safi Eriksdotter. This is in Modern. If you have Safi Eriksdotter and Renegade Rallier, you just need a way to sacrifice the Renegade Rallier without spending mana, but profitably, in order to win. Right?
Can you do it with like a Viscera?
That lets you scry through your whole deck, and it gives you infinite triggers if you have anything else. It's also interesting that this might be part of some weird like Project X redo, right? Like Redux. Like it could be that you combine Renegade Rallier with Malira, right? Like Renegade Rallier is kind of interesting with Viscera Seer anyway, because of the ability to just sack the Viscera Seer. And you can also, in Modern, you can just sack fetch lands anyway and just do this like crazy. But being able to get back your Malira or your Anafenza, your Anafenza 2-drop, like, that's a pretty big game. I mean, if you just have Anafenza in play, then Safi, Renegade Rallier, and something else, like being able to sack the Rallier loops. But you might just be on some green-white backup plan, because like Renegade Rallier getting back the 2/2 Voice of Resurgence. Like if you just have Renegade Rallier with Voice of Resurgence, you're already doing some pretty big things with regards to grinding through people's lightning bolts or Tarmogoyfs.
Yeah, so Safi Eriksdotter, for those who haven't been playing as long, is a famous character in Magic, flavor text in the original Lurgoyf, right? And it's a 2/2 creature for 2 that has the ability, you can sacrifice it to target a card. When that card goes to the graveyard, a creature, then Safi will bring it back. So, like Patrick was saying, if you could sacrifice the Renegade Rallier, target it with Safi Eriksdotter, then Safi goes to the graveyard, Renegade Rallier goes to the graveyard, Renegade Rallier is brought back by Safi, and then itself brings back Safi. So then you can create a loop that way. Something as simple as a Soul Warden will win the game, though, right? If you have a sack outlet, you can just generate a nigh infinite amount of life. I think what's cool, if you're going to go this deep in Modern with Safi Eriksdotter and Renegade Rallier, Renegade Rallier, like you said already, works with fetch lands. It's actually an amazing ramp card, if you look at it that way. Just absolutely outstanding. It will just jump you 2 mana. All these cards work really well with Collected Company, which, God bless it, hasn't been banned yet.
Yeah, I mean, Collected Company definitely got a lot of new assets in this set. You know, there's a lot of great things. There's a lot to like. You know, Rishkar Pima Renegade, another great Collected Company flip.
Yeah, I think like the whole plan of just outlasting somebody's lightning bolts is not a bad one. You know, considering where Modern might go.
So, what do you think about Burrell, Chief of Compliance? This is the 1 in a blue, 1/3 instance. We talked about this guy briefly the other day, but 1 in a blue, 1/3 instance and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card.
I think it's awesome, right? I think like he's just gonna be great in a lot of different strategies. I think that you can slot him right into spell-based decks, and he's just a mana engine by himself. Also, a pretty reasonable blocker for what he's costing. I think you mentioned it best last week. You don't even have to have a single counter spell in your 75 for him to be effective.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just as a 1/3 mono blue. You know, being like the goblin, but as a mono blue card and shockproof is already a big deal.
I mean, he could be helpful in things like time walks or crushes. He's just makes stuff cheaper. He's a great enabler.
Oh yeah. And when you make your your cards like Sram's Expertise cheaper or Rishkar's Expertise, you actually end up making, like, you get an even more of a benefit because you're also casting whatever other card for free, even if it's not a sorcery or instant. Like, if you use Burrell on turn 2 and then on turn 3 Sram's Expertise, you've saved a mana casting Sram's Expertise, but then you also might just cast, Liliana or Nissa or Saheeli Rai, for instance, in your red, white, blue Jeskai copycat deck. So, like, you're creating, like, a huge impact on the board.
I think one of the things that is subtle about Burrell or Barrel, I don't know how to say it. Burrell?
Whatever. Yeah.
Whatever he is that he actually disproportionately rewards you for playing with more efficient cards, right? So if you're playing cards that cost 6, let's say, right, and he makes it cost 5, that's cool. But if you're playing cards that cost 2 and he makes it cost 1, wow, all of a sudden things get very, very interesting, right? If you're talking about playing with rebuffs or like just like think about what you could do on turn 3 after you untap with him. Like being able to cast 3 anticipates the next turn. That's pretty interesting. I think that's more interesting than casting 1 forecasting cost card. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think so too. I think that the amount that Barrel improves take inventory is kind of interesting.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah. Or what
right?
about Cathartic Reunion.
Sure. Trying to hit a couple more combos by request. Mechanized Production, 2 blue, Enchantment Aura. Enchant artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of Enchanted Artifact. Then, if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. So the combo with Mechanized Production, I mean, there's a couple, but the most obvious combo is Mechanized Production with Servos or Thopters. Because you could just use token making to generate 7. If you just have 7 Thopters or 7 Servos in play, you can win in one turn from Mechanized Production.
Yeah, so you don't actually need to use that card itself to get going, right? You could just have a kind of an incumbent number of Servos or Thopters and piggyback the text, right?
Or things that make them. Because if it doesn't have to be, you don't have to copy what you mechanize production doesn't have to be the thing that wins. You could actually mechanize production your for instance, your Thopter Maverick, your Maverick Thopterist, right? Because every turn you'll make 2 more Thopters, and if you just already have 6 Thopters, if you put it on the Maverick Thopterist, you'll jump straight to 8.
Oh, that's a great point, Patrick. So, yeah, just to reread that clause, at the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of Enchanted Artifact. Oh, no. You have to enchant an artifact.
Right, so you'd have to do it to one of the artifact making Thopter guys or Servos guys. Not sure which one is the most efficient yet. Let me see. Yeah, because
I think the point stands, right? That that these can be 2 different things, right? And that one of them can create more than 1 copy per turn, potentially, if you've got the right card.
Well, and you can put this on a hexproof card. Right, like if you put this on a hexproof card, your opponent may not be able to disrupt it, so that on your upkeep you can just win with, unrelated Servos. Or, depending on what cards get printed the next few sets, I mean, if there's a way to turn your lands into creatures, it's kind of interesting that if you can turn something if you can turn a basic land into an artifact in some way, which currently
like a liquid metal coating?
Right, if there's some kind of a way that you can turn all your lands into artifacts, who knows, right? Like if there's some Karn type of deal, something, right? They might print a card that lets you turn all your lands into artifacts, and in such a case, all your basics could count for you, and then you could just win that way.
Like, could you, let's see, I'm wondering actually, like let's say for sake of argument, you were playing Modern and you had mechanized production and liquid metal coating, right? If you could,
you have to have.
They all have to be artifacts, right, for you to win. That you can't just have one be an artifact,
right?
And they all have the same name,
right? But if you could turn all your lands, for instance, if you played the 10 cost, the expensive card that turns all your cards into artifacts, then you would win. But who knows? They might print another one that's cheaper, What do you think about using all this assembly worker stuff? Is there anything to the assembly worker stuff that we can potentially abuse in some way? Like for instance, Cogwork Assembler is 3 colorless for a 2/3 assembly worker, which is important in case you need to tutor it up using the Kaladesh assembly worker. But it's 3 colorless for a 2/3. And you can pay 7 to create a token that's a copy of target artifact. That token gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So this is a poly ability. If, for instance,
if
you had...
got 14 or more.
So imagine, for instance, you're playing Legacy, and you play Cogworker's Assembler and target the metalworker that you just cast that turn. Give it haste, and then just win that turn because you just tap your. I mean, if you just even if you just have a Metalworker in play, I mean, if you're copying something that produces 8 mana, that's infinite, right?
Yeah. So
you can actually make enough extra mana so that eventually you can just make tons and tons and tons of Metalworkers and attack for 1 billion that way.
Yeah, so the way that it would work is if you got a Metalworker and you can reveal enough cards in your hand to generate 8 or more mana, then you use 7 on the Cogwork Assembler to copy the Metalworker, tap the next Metalworker to create another copy, do this over and over again, net a single mana each time. Then eventually I'm like, all right, do this 1 billion times. I have 1 billion spare mana. Now 1 billion divided by 7, that's how many Metalworkers I'm going to make to attack you with, right?
Right.
That's pretty cool. That's almost just a 2-card combo.
Yeah, and then you just need to have a bunch of artifacts in your deck. You could potentially use Cogwork Assembler as a way to recurse a Candelabra of Tanos. Since it doesn't have to be an artifact creature. You can actually just keep making copies of Candelabra of Tanos.
So as long as you have 8 or more lands, you're netting mana, right?
Well,
or the lands could be like polylands, right?
Right, or like you could have High Tide in effect. You could have some lands like City of Traders or whatever that are or Urzatron, for instance. Because if you're just tapping the Urzatron, if you just have, like, for instance, it takes, I think, 5 Urza lands to go infinite with Candelabra of Tanos and Cogworkers Assembler. So, like, there's something there, right?
Well, but at least there's a new tool there, right? I mean, it's also the right casting cost to be found with Trophy Mage, for example, right? Like, that's a potential thing.
Yes. And it's also interesting, I don't know what the exact application you use, but the fact that you can create a copy of an artifact repeatedly, that's just, it's something different. Like Kiki Jiki, Splinter Twin, like there's been a lot of ways, now the Saheeli Rai Felidar, there's been a lot of ways to recurse creatures, to make over and over and over again creatures, but to have a poly-activatable way to recurse artifacts is a little bit of a different twist that might be worth keeping an eye on. And even in Standard, I don't know what you would end up doing, but I could imagine there being some sort of a combo somewhere where you incidentally, right, like maybe your Trophy Mage deck has one Cogwork Assembler. Because when you go long, there's a way you can set up a couple cards so that you actually can get one permanent to tap for 8 or more mana somehow, right? Like, I don't know what all you're doing. I don't know if you really have enough Verdant Haven type of business or if there's some different thing. I don't know. Like I think it's worth keeping in mind those kind of like fancy combo potential packages, right? Like when you have a tutor as powerful as Trophy Mage, to be able to go get the Assembly Worker as a one-of and then just combo off with it, like when the game goes really long. And then finally, what do you think about the where is it? Can you do anything with Treasure Keeper? This is the 4 colorless 3/3 that when it dies, you basically cascade to a non-land card that costs 3 or less, and you can cast that card without paying its casting cost and put the rest on the bottom. So it's a 3/3 that when it dies, cascades.
Huh. I mean, part of me just is like, it's a value card, right? It's not like so different from a Matter Reshaper.
It could be. That's one way to use it.
I mean, I've seen Matter Reshapers just sided in matchups where you think the opponent's going to have a bunch of removal or trying to bruise you on the ground. This is a little expensive for that purpose, though.
So it's probably bad, but just to get the juices flowing a little bit, imagine the 1/2 artifact creature that when it dies, you can draw an artifact back from your graveyard.
Not Scrap Trawler, right?
No. It was from Kaladesh. It's let's see, where is it? Let me go find it. Here we go. Workshop Assistant is 3 colorless for a 1/2 when Workshop Assistant dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So imagine that your deck is able to play enough cheap interaction through cards that have their casting cost be fake, right? Where, like, for instance, I don't know the right way you would do this, but, like, if you could actually swing it, going to an extreme, for instance, if Workshop Assistant was the only artifact, the only card in your deck that costs 3 or less, which is a big ask, but if that were true, then when they kill the Treasure Keeper, you would go get Workshop Assistant, which would get the Treasure Keeper back if it died, right? Like, there's an inevitability where your opponent could never grind through them all through traditional means. Now, realistically, you can't afford to not play cards that cost 1, 2, or 3, but it's interesting to think about the fact that Treasure Keeper cascading could cascade into cards that get back Treasure Keeper. Right? Like, what if your deck had a bunch of cards that could get back Treasure Keeper? Like, you cascade into Liliana, and then you use Liliana, and you get back your Treasure Keeper.
I kind of like the sound of that because I have a Liliana now.
Right. Like, who knows how many more of those there are, right? Like, maybe you don't have to play bad stuff like the Workshop Assistant. But what if you could literally play 16 cards that all do stuff that's really good and happen to get back a Treasure Keeper? So that you just could guarantee never, ever, ever run out once you start doing all that stuff.
See, that's, I think, even narrower than some of the other combos we've been talking about tonight. Because I feel like it's kind of, you would do a lot of work to get to this, and we're not sure what the right configuration is yet. But even once you've done that, it's only good against a limited subsection of the decks you could be playing against, right? So it's more effective the smaller the tournament you're in, right? But, like, if you're in a tournament that has, like, a disparate number of decks, I think that you just run too much risk of somebody not interacting with your Treasure Keeper. I think that's kind of the thing. Like, if you can guarantee, let's say you're playing limited, right? And you can more or less guarantee that your opponent has to interact with your Treasure Keeper in order to win. Then yes, going through these hoops to set this up and getting it back and looping this, it makes it very, very difficult for them to get through. But if people are just going to make 1,000 cats, right, or deck you, or remove all of your permanents from the game, right, not just destroy them, which is, I think, kind of the stuff that we're thinking people are going to try to do, or win with, like, evasion, sheer speed, etc. Like, I think that there's something there, but either you have to bring it in out of the sideboard in matchups where it will be cost effective, meaning that it's meaningfully going to interact with things that cost 4 or more mana. So I think that if people are playing Fleetwheel Cruiser, for example, this might be okay. It'll trade with a Fleetwheel Cruiser and generate value, and you'll take a little damage. That could be okay. But I think that if the thing you're fighting against is all Archangel Avacins, it's not going to be okay. First of all, they don't interact with each other.
Yep.
They kind of end, right?
Yep. No, you're right.
But, I think that that might have not been where we're going to end up in Aether Revolt combos, but there's plenty of other stuff that's awfully exciting that we talked about tonight. I personally think that...
Can I give you one last combo?
Of course.
Dude, this one, I've been so hungry for this one. I want it.
You're saving this one for last.
Sly Requisitioner. 4 and a black for a 2/2 Improvise. Whenever a non-token artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. So I want to start leading it through. So you got Sly Requisitioner in your deck, right? Let's say that your deck also has Yahenni Undying Partisan and the Desperate Salvager. Or Defiant Salvager. If you have Defiant Salvager, which is 2 and a black for a 2/2, you can sacrifice an artifact or creature to put a +1/+1 counter on it at sorcery speed.
So it's like the slow Arcbound Ravager we talked about last week.
Right. But it can also set creatures. And then you have Yahenni. That's 2 different 0-cost sack outlets in black, and not embarrassing cards in their own right. And if your deck has, if you can play like 4 Servos Exhibition, 4 metal, maybe not Servos Exhibition, but you can play Terrion, Metal Spinners Puzzle Knot. You can have the new one, Servos Schematic. You might have Cogworkers Puzzle Knot. You might, there's lots of things you might have, right? Your Scrap Trawler style Walking Ballista type of stuff.
So, first of all, these cards just being in your deck are going to be able to help you cast Sly Requisitioner for cheaper, right? Because that card has Improvise.
And it'll curve kind of nice in terms of just like backup plans that you'll do sometimes where you'll just have 2 if you have a bunch of cards that make 2 artifacts for 2 mana, then you can cast the Sly Requisitioner on turn 3 pretty easily. But where this is all going is trying to create a turn in which you drop Marionette Master and kill them. If you have Inspiring Statuary, Marionette Master is now suddenly very easy to cast for very cheap. And it just so happens that you'll have lots of artifacts in play. Marionette Master is the 6 mana, the 4 BB.
I lost to it on Moto last week. I know what this card is.
That's, yes. So Marionette Master, for those at home, it's 6 mana, and it has Fabricate 3. Whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So one option, you can go wide with it and use it as a token maker, spread across a lot of bodies. But another option is to stack it up so it's a 4/6. And now, whenever you sack an artifact, you'll hit your opponent for 4. You just need to have 5 artifacts in play and a sack outlet to 20 your opponent all the way down.
So the bet here is that Sly Requisitioner, Marionette Master, and then Yaheni, none of these are like embarrassing cards on their own. But when you get them all together, you've just got to kill.
Right. You can just play a bunch of stuff. You can play like Inspiring Statuary, Key to the City. You might just have cantrip artifacts, a Scrap Trawler deck, whatever it is. It's like you're playing an artifact deck of sorts. Maybe you have some amount of Metalwork Colossus going on, maybe not, I don't know. Maybe you're more black aggro, but you're trying to not play with too bad of cards. And instead just play with good cards that happen to make it so that in a mid-rangey kind of game, you 20 your opponent out of nowhere. Dude, Marionette Master is so waiting. The guy's ready. The fact that this guy's always been held back by the fact that he costs 6. And now you have Inspiring Statuary.
He's pretty lusty. He's big.
And this guy, you've always been held back by the fact that there wasn't a plethora of 0-mana sack outlets. Now, not only do you have Yaheni for your creatures, if you want to go that route, like your artifact creatures, you've got Defiant Salvager, which can go both ways, and you've got the new Atog.
Oh, this is how I lost to it last week. Actually, you played the first Marionette Master, made the tokens, right? And I'm like,
sure,
I'm pretty sure I can beat this, even though I was low on life. Then he played the second Marionette Master and then started to attack, but instead he made it big instead of making more tokens. Then he just started attacking me with the tokens, and I was like, oh man, the jig is up. At some point, I can't block these. That's what happened. I think you just getting 2 of those together is powerful in that, right?
It's kind of interesting for looping all the way back to our Indomitable Creativity packages. If you go get 2 Marionette Masters, a Defiant, if you just get some mix of Defiant Salvager and 2 Marionette Masters. That right there is 15, but there's a lot of other things you could do. I don't know. It's just interesting, the mix of, I guess you need to have a lot of artifacts. I guess you can just use one up and one sideways.
You know what I like about this episode is we said, in contrast to last week, where we talked about just good cards, nuts and bolts cards that were highly effective, kind of more fair Magic. we're going to start talking about Felidar Guardian and Saheeli Rai, kind of the super iconic 2-card infinite combo that's enabled by Aether Revolt. But we kind of came around to like the Marionette Master's like fair-ish, but also combo-ish, and it's not infinite, right? Like Felidar Guardian, but It's also not just like a vanilla way to play the game.
True. And we didn't even talk about using the Aether or Aid from the Cowl as a backup plan in Marvel. Aid from as its own deck, because if you have Aid from the Cowl, you can use like Mortuary Mire, or if you just use the Eldrazi that puts an Eldrazi of your choice on top of your deck. Aid from the Cowl just lets you play Ulamog for free. I mean,
so
this deck, this set, so many combos,
so many different things. So, let's talk about that one next week. So, is there going to be an open this week? Do you think we're going to see some new decks hit?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's the actual release weekend.
Yep.
So we're going to be seeing, at the very least, in Columbus is the first big event of the season. I think that you're going to see some amount of new stuff and craziness. You're going to see a lot of wide open, a wide open format in terms of like lots and lots of stuff that people will want to be trying at first. Now that there's all this room from Smuggler's Copter, Reflector Mage, and Emrakul being out of the way. But I don't think that we're going to see what the format is really like yet. I think we're going to see just like stage 1 of its bizarre evolution. Because I think by the time the Pro Tour rolls around, it's going to be an unrecognizable monster. But even this weekend, I got a feeling it's going to be the Wild West.
There's going to be all the Pro Tour?
Pro Tour is the first week of February.
All right, so a couple of weeks. Not too long, though.
Nope. I just think that each of the weeks there's going to be... This is going to be a very different animal, I have a feeling. So it'll be interesting to see the evolution from week to week, because at first people are going to be really holding on to what they know. They're like, oh, I lost Copter, so I'll put Heart of Kieran in my deck or something. But really, the consequences are going to be far, far, far more profound than that.
I'm excited.
Awesome, man. Looking forward to seeing what this weekend ends up looking like. But I hope everybody comes back and kicks with us next week. Thank you guys for tuning in every week, for sharing us on social media, Top Level Podcast all everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever, Twitter,
Patreon. So this
Patreon.
Week, shout out to Dean DiPietro from Patreon, one of our many and generous patrons on that platform. Thanks a lot, Dean.
Thank you much.
So, share us on social media. Subscribe on iTunes or Google Play, YouTube, wherever you want to subscribe. We would like you to do that, and cheer for Team Top Level at Dublin. Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, so jail or hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis.